Hello everyone. Today I'll be discussing the US-China trade war, America first or economic fallout. Over the next 8 minutes, I'm going to explain what tariffs are, the goal of President Trump's tariffs, how his decision affected the economy of America, China, and the wider world, the benefit and trade-offs of these tariffs, and what this all means for the future. Starting off, a tariff is essentially a tax placed on the foreign goods imported into a country. The tax is paid for by the importer, usually corporations, and the collections go to the government. This puts a strain on many businesses that are reliant on foreign imports. And in most cases, to maintain profit margins, this extra cost is often passed on to consumers through higher retail prices, making everything you want to buy more expensive. In theory, tariffs can protect local industries, but in practice, they often trigger retaliation, which is exactly what defines a trade war, when countries keep taxing each other's goods in response. Traditionally, in a trade war, neither side truly wins. Tariffs act as a trading tax that makes global commerce more expensive, drives up consumer prices, and reduces the economic benefits that come from trade specialization. Another point to mention, once tariffs are in place, they're difficult to remove and can linger for years even after the original conflict cools down, which we'll see later. So if tariffs are economically harmful in both the short and long term, why would President Trump want to start one, especially with China, America's largest importer? Well, the answer may lie in the question. In 2024, the U.S. imported about $439 billion worth of goods from China while exporting only about $144 billion back, leaving a trade deficit of $295 billion, the largest of any U.S. trading partner. President Trump saw this as unjust and argued America was being ripped off. But beyond the trade deficit, there was a deeper issue: China's use of U.S. intellectual property and technology. President Trump directed the Office of United States Trade Representative, or USTR, to investigate the Chinese economic practices. In the resulting report issued in March 2018, the U.S. essentially accused China of forcing American companies to transfer technology and share intellectual property just to access the Chinese markets. In an August 2017 PBS NewsHour address, Trump said, "We will defend our workers and we will protect the innovations, creations, and inventions that power our magnificent country," and mentions this is just the beginning. In 2018, President Trump declared that trade wars are easy to win, a quote that might define his legacy. At the heart of Trump's trade strategy was an American-first philosophy. The U.S. accused China of intellectual property theft and forced technology transactions that were said to undermine U.S. innovation. Trump's solution was bold: impose tariffs on $360 billion worth of Chinese goods to make foreign products more expensive and incentivize American companies to produce at home. Specifically, taxes on industrial equipment and machinery, electronics and semiconductors, steel and aluminum products, automotive parts, and consumer goods. The idea was to rebuild the U.S. manufacturing base, reduce reliance on China, and restore domestic jobs, even if it meant disrupting the global economy. After the initial tariff implementation, the Chinese government argues that the U.S. government's real goal is to stifle China's growth, and that the trade war has had a negative global effect. Further, the Chinese government has denied that forced transfer of intellectual property is a mandatory practice and acknowledges the impact of domestic R&D performed in China. However, China retaliated swiftly with its own tariffs on American goods, targeting farm exports like soybeans, dairy, and pork, as well as automobiles, oil, and gas. They are trying to target industries central to the U.S. economy. Finally, in an attempt to de-escalate, China signs what Trump calls a historic trade deal, where China is committed to purchase $200 billion worth of additional U.S. exports before December 31st, 2021. However, due to the pandemic and the recession, in the end, China only bought 58% of the U.S. exports it had committed to the purchase under the agreement, not even enough to reach the import levels before the trade war. Put differently, China bought none of the additional $200 billion worth of exports Trump's deal had promised. One of the most significant global responses to America's tariffs was the revitalization of BRICS, the economic coalition of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, now joined by new members like Saudi Arabia and Iran. The BRICS nations have begun to explore trading in their local currencies instead of the US dollar. expanding Eastern economic ties in response to what they saw as Western trade dominance. In effect, Trump's tariffs, intended to strengthen American independence, also pushed emerging powers to cooperate and challenge US-led globalization. Now let's catch up to the present day. If you look at this chart, you can see the trajectory of the tariff escalation since 2018. During Biden's term, we saw no reversal of Trump's original tariffs, which shows just how sticky these tariffs can be. And while President Biden didn't raise tariffs, he did push for more semiconductor manufacturing to be done in the US to reduce dependence on China and promote more domestic production. But when Trump returned to office, he acted fast, slapping new tariffs on a wide range of Chinese exports: steel, aluminum, copper, auto parts, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, solar panels, lumber, and even consumer goods like toys and film. By mid-2025, both nations were retaliating so aggressively that tariffs on each other's goods surged past 100%. The big question is, where does it end? We are entering a new era of globalization, where nations prioritize domestic strength and intellectual property protection over open trade. The US-China trade war isn't just a blip. It signals a longer-term shift in strategy. Tariffs, once a rare economic tool, are now used as leverage in negotiation to rebuild domestic production, secure supply chains, and gain bargaining power. But this comes at a cost: trade tensions, strained alliances, and higher prices for consumers. Still, there's hope. If trust can be rebuilt and global trade strengthens, we might envision a world where cooperation replaces conflict and tariffs can be gradually rolled back. But until that vision becomes a reality, tariffs persist. Thank you for listening.